In this video, we will show you how to replace your starter. Let's get started. Okay friends, let's get started on our job. Before we start taking anything apart, we need to mention, you're going to need to get underneath the front of the vehicle. So make sure you have plenty of clearance and you're in a safe area. Once you've done that, continue on under the hood at the negative battery terminal. Use a 10mm to loosen this mounting nut. After that, you can remove the negative battery terminal from the battery itself. Now let's make our way under the front of the vehicle. Your starter is going to be located directly up and above your oil filter cooler. Generally, you can access the mounting bolts and nuts from right above this area. To make it a little bit easier, I'm going to go ahead and remove our oil cooler from the engine. To remove this, you'll find that you have 4 10mm headed mounting bolts that hold it in place. Before we remove those, we're going to come right over to the driver's side of this. You're going to find your OP switch or oil pressure switch. I'll use a pick and carefully get behind my squeeze tab and pull this off. Quick inspection for corrosion, set that aside. Now we can remove all 4 of our mounting bolts. When you do this, oil will come out of the area. Make sure you have hand and eye protection at all times and a collection bucket under the area. Inspect your hardware as you remove it, replace it as necessary. As we remove this last bolt, like I said, there might be oil in the area and potentially a gasket as well. There's our gasket. Give it a quick inspection, make sure it's still reusable. If it isn't, you can use some oil-resistant gasket maker, or RTV. Now we can swing this aside. Now we can start removing the wiring from the back side of the starter. With that said, we'll use a 10mm and we're going to start removing this lower nut right here. There's the lower nut. For this upper mounting nut, we'll use a 13mm socket. There it is. Now that we have the wires off of there, let's continue on to this lower bracket. You'll find that you have a 10mm headed nut holding this in place. Remove the nut. Once you have the metal bracket out of the way, continue on to your OP switch wiring. We'll slide that right off as well. Now we can start removing our 2 13mm headed mounting bolts. Start with the top one, it's a little harder to get to. There's that one. Now we can move along to our lower one with the stud coming out of it. Now we can carefully remove the starter from the engine. I'll use a pry bar to gently separate this. There it is, friends. Let's get ready for our installation. Take your starter and put it like this and slide it onto the engine. You'll notice on the engine itself up here, you have two studs that protrude out a little bit and they slide into the starter holes. We'll get that lined up, slide it up against the engine and transmission as far as possible. Continue on with your two mounting bolts. The one with the stud, you'll remember, goes on the bottom. Get that top one in there. Let's torque each of these mounting bolts to 26 foot-pounds. Now we can start putting the metal bracket on here. We'll slide that right over that mounting stud. After you have that on, continue on with your 10mm mounting nut. We'll bottom this out and then we'll torque it to 177 inch-pounds. Once you have that secure, reattach the plastic wiring harness to the stud. Before you reconnect the wiring to your starter, make sure you clean up the terminal ends. Use some sandpaper. Once you get one side done, do the exact same thing to the other. Now you can continue on to reattaching your wiring. We'll slide this in position, making sure both wires go over their mounting studs on the starter. There we are. With it slid in position, start on both of your mounting nuts. The 13mm goes on the top stud. Now we can torque each of these. The smaller 10mm headed nut is 53 inch-pounds. And now we can torque this larger nut to 106 inch-pounds. Now let's clean down the mating surface on the oil cooler in the area that goes up against the engine. To do this, we'll just use a flat blade razor. Once that's cleaned, clean the mating surface on your engine. Once you have your mating surfaces cleaned down, continue on by reinstalling your gasket. We'll put the housing in place and start in all 4 of our mounting bolts. Now that they're all snug, torque them to 18 foot-pounds. Reconnect in your OP switch. Listen for a click, give it a tug to make sure it's secure. The next thing you want to do is clean up your mess. Now let's make our way back up to the top of the engine compartment. Reconnect your negative battery terminal. Slide this into place, press it down onto the battery as far as you can, and then tighten your 10mm headed mounting nut. Give it a wiggle to make sure it's secure. Once you have the negative battery terminal connected, hop inside the passenger compartment. Start up your vehicle, let it run for 5 seconds and turn it off. After that, we're going to make our way right over to the oil dipstick. You need to check the oil level. We'll lift this up, wipe it off completely. We'll have a look real quick. Looking at the oil dipstick itself, you can see that it has 2 little dots. And in between those 2 dots, you're going to see a hatched area. Anywhere in the hatches is a good sign. If it's below the hatches, you need to add a little bit. We'll go ahead and put this back in here. Once you're sure the oil level's good to go, take it for a road test. Thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.